this file handling in PHP. So as I told that this is essential in web applications as well as in desktop-based application or your mobile-based applications as well. So you open a file and then you process some task on that and you close it. This is a normal operations that usually surrounding file system. And then so there are a few built-in PHP functions separate file system. So we have fopen, a built-in function which is used to actually open a file. So you pass file name, file path, it's gonna open the file. It will try to open a file. If not, then you can handle exceptions. So there are, you can also pass second argument, which will say, what is the mode of access for that. We'll see different kind of mode of accesses in PHP. And, we also have, for a few functions like before we try to open a file, we can use file exist, check whether file actually exists on the file system or not. And then open file has a current pointer indicating a point in the file. So we will see that in the examples. And also normally, input and output operations occur at the current pointer position, in the open file. And once we are done with our operations, we can just use fclose to close the file, the open file. We usually, so in fopen, first argument is R is just for read only. R plus is read and write an existing file. The file pointer is initialized to the beginning of the file. If a read operation precedes and new data is written just after where the read operation left the file pointer. So it's going to be wherever your pointer is, next line onwards, the new data will be written. Then you have tableau, which is just write only, initialize the file pointer to the beginning of the file, creates the file if it doesn't exist. So these are different mode of accesses. If you want to just you're sure, and then you just need to open a file to read the content in that file, you can just go for R. Like we have fgets, fgets, which is used to read a single line from a file, fgetc to read a single character in that file. And then normally when you go for fgets and then fgetc, because you're going to read either by line or by characters, it's always it's advisable to check for feof, the last character has been read or not. It's going to return true if it yes, if it is yes, else it can continue. We'll now just look at the example of the functions, usage of a few of the functions that we have just gone through. So I have created one more file. So I have what it is going to do is it is going to check whether this file exists. First thing, if yes, then it is going to open it, get the file handle, and then call that fread function to read the content in this file. And then we will also see, so read function is going to give you entire content as bytes, And then we will also see fgetS function to read just one line, and then we will close that file. And then we will also see the usage of file function. So as I told, if we don't provide complete path file, like webdictionary.txt I have provided, it is going to check for that file, same directory where your script is. What we are doing, we are just checking whether this file exists. If it doesn't, then it's gonna throw file doesn't exist message. And then we are calling this fopen function. We are passing the file name, and then we are opening it just for read-only purpose. We are not gonna write anything in that. We are opening it only for read purpose. If that is not possible, then it's gonna throw this message, unable to open file. And then we have, so I'm just printing to make it clear, I'm just printing read entire file and then end of file. So fread, as we have seen, we are passing this file handle, and then I'm calling this file size function to get the file so that fread can read entire file and return number of bytes. And then we are calling this fclose function by passing this file handle, so the file which is open will now be closed. That is one way of reading a file. And then the next one is we are opening the same file, and then we are reading just one line. So remember, fgetS is just to read just read single line, and then you have fgetC to read just one character, single character. And then the same way we are just closing that file. It is always advisable, and it is always good to close the file which is open. So we will just execute this and then see the output. Screen, I have executed that file in the browser, and then this is the output. So first one is the output of fread function, which has read the entire file content. And then the second one is fgetS function, which prints just one line from the file provided as parameter. So if you guys have remember, this is the way to comment multiple lines, and then we have this one as a single line. So what we are doing here is the same thing. Check if file exists, then just read file. We don't need file handles here. We don't need to open it and then call explicitly with, close explicitly with fclose function. File function is just gonna get that file, read it, and then close it automatically. So there won't be any file handle required. So we'll just execute it and then see the output. You see, it's the response, the output is array with each line as an array element. And then if we don't pass array key, it is going to automatically create numerical index key 0, 1, 2, 3. From a file. Now next is writing into the file. Like we have fread and then file. You will have to open a file, get the file handle, and then use fwrite function to write into that file using the file handle. So if a file handle is open for writing or appending, then the fwrite function can be used to write bytes to the file. So when you append it, it's going to write in the end in that file, and then file put contents function gives us it's just going to write whatever you want to write into that file as a string, and it doesn't require any file handle. So you will not have to explicitly open and then close file when you're using file put contents. We'll see an example for that as well. Ways. So we're just here using fwrite here. What we are doing is we are writing a line, and then we are giving a line break, and then we are writing another line. So if you see here, I have used fopen function to open a file, and then the mode of access I have provided w plus, which means write to the file, and then plus is going to create the file if it doesn't exist. And then I'm writing Jntuk and then giving a line break, and then writing that using the file handle, and then writing another line called Tata Consultancy Services, and then closing that file, and then printing a message like file writing is complete. It's complete. Now we will go to that directory and then see file has created, and then what is the content in that. So if you see, this is the directory where I was executing, and then we will open it. So this is the file that it has written. So if you see that it has written, observe, we have given a new line here and then a new line here. So that's the reason if you see the file pointer was on the third line. String that you want to write into that file. Now, moving on. So there are, scenarios where, when we are writing into a file, we also need to log that file. So if I'm opening a file, it's always better to log that file so that others can also doesn't try to write into the same file. So there is a flog function available, which you can, call to log that file while you are writing or performing any operations. So if you want to get, for an example, if you want to get the latest or current list of students who have attended this, and then assume that we are writing whenever some student joins in the class, we just write his or her details in that file. So if you want to get the current list, then when I open that file where it's getting written to, I'll use this flog function so that when I'm reading, it doesn't override it with some the latest data, and then we can just release the lock and then close that file. So there are it also takes second parameter for the mode of access, similar to fopen function. One specifies that while I'm doing some operation, I'm allowing others to just have read access to that file. Two specifies no other access is allowed. And then if I'm passing 3 as a second parameter, it is going to remove the lock from that file. So if you see the example here, we are opening a file and then we are locking it to make sure that others are not writing into that file. So if you see a lock function, I have used lock exclusively, and then I'm writing something and then calling this lock underscore un, which is the parameter 3, second parameter but value as 3, and it is going to unlock that file. If it is not been able to log that file, it is going to print an error message like error logging file. And once your operations are done, you can just close that file. We have seen, how to check whether the file exists or not, and then open a file, and then read from that file or write into that file, and then close that file. Similarly, if you want to avoid this all step-by-step process, you can just use file get contents or file put contents, wherein you don't necessarily need a file handle. And then you can also use file function to just read the content of the file if you want to receive the output as an array. And then we have also seen how to lock a file. So this was about locking of files, and then with this file handling, mostly at high level is complete. Now we will move to next slide, which is going to talk about cookies. I hope everyone knows about cookies, mostly used in the browser, in the web browsers, irrespective of your desktop or your mobile. Wherever you use browser, there are most of the sites uses cookies nowadays. Your browser has, still you have settings whether you want to accept cookies or not, that you can configure in your browser settings. So a cookie, because HTTP is a stateless protocol, and then when you are in one page and when you move to another page, when you click on a link and then you move to another page, HTTP doesn't maintains a state of who is moving from where and what. So in order to maintain a state, there are different ways to maintain a state. And then most basic one is you can just set cookies in the user's browser. So the server treats each request as completely separate from any other. So that was the problem with HTTP. So in terms of application, let's say a shopping cart, or you have certain applications like if you have your attendance marking application in your universities. So there are ways. So before you mark attendance, you will have a login page so that it can recognize who is going to mark the attendance. Or if you want to download your certificates, or see when your exams are scheduled, or internal some test, or if anything is there, if you want to check the schedules or check the calendar, you will have to log in, because for each student or for each branch, there may be different classes or different schedule. So for that, we can just if you want to have a basic state of the user, if you want to maintain the basic state of the user, then you can go for cookies, which has some security concerns. It is not going to be, because it is going to be stored in user's computer. There is a possibility of getting those cookies manipulated. So, but their cookies helpful option if you want to maintain a state of the user. So another example would be this shopping cart, where you buy something. There are a lot of e-commerce sites available nowadays, and which requires you, if you don't have mobile app, you go and access their website like Amazon or Flipkart or Snapdeal. You log in there, and then if you would have already added items in the cart, it will still ask you to log in, and then once you log in, it will recognize who is ordering. So with that, it will, if already details are available, it's gonna show you those, and then you can complete your order there. So the mechanism of cookies can be used to help maintain state. That is what we have seen. We have just seen about the examples also, like shopping cart or university application or something else. A cookie is like a key value pair. Remember, in the first section, we have seen few global reserved variables like $_get, $_post. Similarly, we have $_cookie, which is also a reserved global variable. So this key value pair is sent along with any request made by the browser to the server. So when your browser send a request, it also passes all the cookies set on that user's computer. A cookie has a lifetime. So think of a cookie like, okay, I want to set this cookie on the user's computer till this time. So then you also can specify till what time this cookie should be available, and after that it will be automatically deleted from the browser. So we'll see an example of cookies. So each time in the same computer request a page, it will send that cookie to until it is expired. So with PHP, it is also possible, we can create a key and then we can retrieve the cookie values. So let's see an example. Just setting cookie name and cookie value, and we have the set cookie function in PHP to set the cookie. And then you can retrieve the cookie value with $_cookie variable. All the cookies will be accessible with $_cookie. So set as array in the $_cookie variable. Saying value, let's keep Abdul Hafiz, and then set this cookie. If you see expiration, I'm setting its lifetime to current time. Time is an epoch function. It's going to return the epoch time in PHP till seconds. Current time till seconds, it's going to return as an integer. So this is time function that we can use in PHP to get the current epoch time. And then 86400 into 30. I'm saying keep it available for 1 day. If you say 1, then it is going to be available too for 1 day with the name as user and value as Abdul Hafiz. And then, so as we have also seen that is set function. Before we want to access any variable, it's always better to check whether that variable is set or not. Otherwise, you'll get a warning. So we are checking here if cookie name, $cookie name, which is user, is set on the user's computer or not. If it is not, then it is going to print that cookie is not set. Else it is going to read that cookie and then print the value. So when you first access on the first time, cookie was not set. Now when I execute that script, at that time cookie is set. So in the request, when I executed cookie.php, there was no cookie set with name as user on the computer, on the browser of the user's computer. Once this is, so cookies, remember that it is going to be only on the client side. But browser passes all the cookies to the server as well. So when the server was processing cookie.php, at that time there was no cookie set on the user's browser. Now cookie is set. So when I send the request again, it is going to recognize, okay, cookie user is set and the value is Abdul. So if you want to see whether cookie is set or not, we can just go for you can open Firebug and then you can go to applications. There we will have cookies. So if you see for localhost, there is a cookie set with name as user and value as Abdul Hafiz. Now this time when we refresh or send the request back to web server again, at that time browser will also be passing this. So initially when I accessed this, at that time there was no cookie set. But when PHP processes, after processing this, it had also set the cookie and then sent to the browser. Now, from this time onwards, whenever I refresh this page or pass this, if I have other files where I'm checking for whether cookies set or not, the browser will be passing along those cookies with this request. So at this time, if you see that user's cookie is set and the value is Abdul Hafiz. We just run the user's browser. I'll show you if we execute this script, it will say cookie named user is not set. If I execute the same again, it will still say cookie named user is not set because cookies are stored only in the web browser. Okay. It is important to consider the security option, scenarios when we are setting cookies. So cookies are only returned to the server that created them. So I have created cookie for the local host. If you see, I have set the domain as just /, which means at the root level. So it has set that for local host, not just specific to application. So if I'm setting at the domain level, then all the subdomains and every every subdomain in that domain will be sharing the same cookie. So we can also, there are patterns that usage patterns, cookies. We can use cookies to determine usage patterns that might not otherwise be ascertained by a user. Browsers generally allow users to limit how cookies are used. If you see that cookies are just set on the browsers, if we try to execute the same script in command prompt, it resulted in no cookie set. As I told that there is a configuration settings in your browsers. If you don't allow, if you said that don't accept cookies, then applications might break if they are relying on cookies. In all this, like we can use set cookie function to set the cookie. We can also specify name and value, and then also set the lifetime for that cookie. $_cookies. Application executes file in command line, and you have few scripts that you want to execute in command line. So that way, if you will not be able to manage state of the user using cookies. So what is the option then? So if you want to execute scripts, or if you want to maintain the state in the server as well, then we can go for sessions. So PHP supports sessions which are stored on the server. So cookies, if you see, are stored in the user's browser. So sessions provide more security compared to cookies because sessions are stored on the server and user will have no control to manipulate the sessions. There is still possibility, but at high level, there are no possible options for users to manipulate sessions. So sessions are actually represented internally in PHP, and every session will have a session ID. Sessions are also going to be, it's in a key value pair, but are stored on the server and are considered internal to the PHP. So we can use session start function to initialize the session, and then similar to $_cookie, we have $_session to retrieve value set in the session. Unless you call this function, you're not going to be able to use sessions. So you will have to use sessions _start. It should be at the beginning of the file where you want to use sessions. And then we are setting a session with key as language and value as PHP. and a key as date and value as today's date, Feb 27, 2017. And then we are printing a message saying session variables are set. Now by this time, sessions are set in the server. So the moment these are set, we can use those. And then we can use $_sessions to retrieve value set for this key in the session. See that session variables are set, sessions on which PHP scripting language is PHP, and session date is what we have set, session date in the session. So if you see the difference, when we have set cookies, the first access on the file did not print the cookie because cookies were set by PHP after processing that request. So the user's browser receives the cookie as part of the response for that file. And then the next access onwards, it will pass the cookie. But if you see, it's a different scenario in session because sessions are set on the server and are considered internally to the PHP. And so PHP, the moment it is set, it is sending those in the response. So if you see, we have set the cookie language value as PHP and date as Feb 27, 2017. We are able to access those sessions in the same request itself. And another difference is this: if we execute this in command line as well, it is going to print the sessions because sessions are stored. We are able to access the values set for the keys in the session. Time of a cookie, session usually will not have any lifetime, but session variables, it lasts till the user closes the browser. About one single user who is accessing the application on the browser. And then, the moment they close the browser, sessions are also deleted. So that was about sessions. So we have seen file handling and cookies and sessions. Now, the last important concept is MySQL integration or database integration. Specifically, we are using MySQL database as an example over here in our last concept in this session. So any queries, please feel free to post in the chat box. Uh, it's an open source database. I mean, it's a free database. We will not have to pay anything for it. Like we have downloaded XAMPP, right, where we also got MySQL. It's free and it's easy to configure. And most of the languages have integration to MySQL either via extensions or libraries. So PHP also has MySQL extension that we will have to just configure. It's there are ways that we can use. There are MySQL and then MySQL I, as well as nowadays we have PDO, which are PHP data objects. So this is a sample command if you want to log into the MySQL. So we'll see that. So MySQL is a command, and then -h is for host, and then -u is for username, and then -p is for password, and then you can just pass the data. So it actually starts an interactive shell wherein you can connect to the we can execute your SQL's structured query languages commands in that shell. So we'll see an example now. Let me just share a command prompt. So if you see my screen, I have MySQL. You'll have to go to the bin folder in MySQL. So I have installed exam. So it is under C and then exam and then MySQL in bin. And then as we have seen, I have typed MySQL and then U is for user name, which I have now root, and I have not set any password. So I can just leave it empty. If you have any password, then you can type P and then -P, and then you can provide whatever your password is. And then if your host is, so default values, if you don't provide -P, it is going to not consider P option. If you pass H option, then you will have to pass host. What is the host? For me, it is just localhost. So by default, it is going to be on the localhost. And then if you have, so default port is 3306. So if I don't provide port, then it is going to consider 3306. If you have port other than 3306, then you will have to provide -- port and then port number. So I'm just connecting to my MySQL server by passing username. So I have not set any password, and then localhost is my host, and then port is default one, so it automatically connects. And then it opens an interactive shell where now we can execute SQL structured query languages commands. So I'm saying, okay, show me all the databases now exist in this MySQL server. So these are the default databases that comes with MySQL. This one, PHP MyAdmin, has been created by exam. SQL command, like we can use create database. If you want to create a database, then you can go for create database keywords and then to create a database. And then we have show tables, like we have show databases. It will list all the databases available in that MySQL server. You can get into one database and then see, if you want to see all the tables, then you can just execute show tables command. And then if you want to see how a table has been created, then you can use describe or explain and then pass table name. So let's execute a few of the commands. We can see show tables here. So if you see, I have just got into the MySQL database, which is by default created. And then when I execute show tables, it will list all the tables in that MySQL database. We can use some other database and then see. So usually in test database, there will not be any tables. So if there is nothing, then it's going to result as empty set. There are important things that we should understand before we write or execute SQL commands from PHP to retrieve the results. So there will be definitely special characters. So we'll have to make sure that we escape those special characters before we execute SQL commands directly on the MySQL. So PHP has built-in HTML special characters function, which is going to replace HTML special characters with entities. So there is a There are different ways to do that, and PHP has other functions as well. Like if you want to strip slashes, then you can go for strip slashes function, which is going to remove the extra backslashes from a string. And you have to be very much careful with strings with quotes, especially single quotes, that will be breaking SQL commands. And we can also set this magic code GPC, which will put backslashes in front of special characters in the string. And then if you want to remove that backslash, you can use the strip slash function. Built-in functions available in PHP to communicate with MySQL server. We can use MySQL connect function to connect to the MySQL database. So this connect function has 4 parameters. You can specify what is the host, and what is the username, password, and then if port is other than 3306. And then we have MySQL close function. Once you are done with your operations, then you can call this MySQL close function to close the connection with MySQL. We can use MySQL select DB to select a database once we have connection enabled. We'll see an example for that. Now there apart from MySQL connection, so this is a simple step that we usually follow. Like you connect to the database, and then you connect to the database server, you select the database, you execute few queries, get the response, and then you close the connection. So MySQL query is a function which you can pass on the SQL query that you want to execute. It returns the result object. And there are different ways to process that result object as well. You can either get that as an array, or you can also get as an object. And then if there are different functions to get the number of results in a number of rows in that result, and the number of columns that we have in that result that you want to process. So each array with a row from the result contains each field or column value indexed by position and by column name. So array values is a function which we can apply to this array to retrieve values twice, one for each possible index. So we have an example here that we will see. It's like SQL, and then we'll just see once we execute that what is the response from the database. Tables here. Let's create a table. We can use create table and then table name. So I'm going to say cars here. So I'm saying, okay, create a column ID, put integer, and then data type. And then I'm saying it to be auto increment. And then I'm creating a name. Let's make it varchar, and then I want to make it 250 characters. And then I'm saying it should not be null. And then let me create another column called model, and then I'm saying let it be just varchar data type as well. And then I'm saying it should also be not null. And then so every table in MySQL should have a primary key so that it recognizes each row. Okay, I had primary as error. So the table is created. Now when we use show tables, it will show one table which is just created, and we can use describe keyword to see how that table. So if you see the table, it has 3 columns. One is ID, name, and model. ID is auto increment, which means when I am executing insert operation in this table, I don't have to pass that ID value. It will automatically increment based on the last value. And the name and model are the columns, which are varchar data type, and I created those as not to be accepting any null values. So this is the database table that we have created. Let's insert few values in that so that we can retrieve it in the browser when we execute sample script file. Remember, I have set both name and model columns as not to accept any null value, so we will have to pass, otherwise it's going to throw an error. So I'm saying, okay, so the moment we have this inserted, if we go and then select it from the database table, it is going to print. So if you see ID, which is auto incremented, automatically inserted with value 1. Now when I go and then insert another value in that, then you will see automatically another row with ID as 2 is created. Let's insert few more. Now we'll see if we select all, it has 4 values. If you see ID, it is now getting automatically incremented. And I'm setting it to access underscore cars.php, which is again another PHP file where this request will be posted, and then we will be processing the posted inputs in that PHP file. So I have 2 functions, one is reset and another one is submit. So I'm just going to enter some SQL query in that text area, and then which will be posted to access cars.php. So this is a PHP file. So as you know that we can embed HTML also, and then in the PHP file, or we can embed PHP in HTML elements. So I'm setting this display errors. So these are 2 functions. We saw that in the first session, how to print errors. I'm calling this input and I said, and then display errors, and then error reporting. Display all errors except deprecated. So MySQL Connect is a function that I'm using, and then localhost is the host, root is the username, and then we can pass password, and then we can also pass port if it is other than 3306. If it is not able to connect to the database, it is going to throw this error message like could not connect to the database. Once I'm connected to the database, I'm executing selected database. Once database is selected, I'm executing the posted query. So remember, we have to, when we have such kind of requirement where we are accepting the SQL query from the user, it is always better to make sure it doesn't contain, it doesn't break your SQL query or perform an unauthorized access to the database. We can use strip slashes function, which can remove the backslashes from the SQL query, or you can also use str replace if you want to replace any other characters, or you can use HTML special characters function to replace HTML characters into entities. So I'm just executing as is. So I'm accepting the query entered by the user, and then I'm just trimming it to remove the white spaces. And then here I'm calling that HTML special characters function to make sure that HTML characters are converted to entities. And then we are calling MySQL underscore query function to execute that query. If it is not able to execute that query, it is going to print this error message. once the query is executed successfully, it is going to retrieve the results. And then we have seen like, MySQL num rows to get the number of results in that. And then MySQL fetch array function to get the result as an array. And then MySQL num fields. This is a function which is going to return the name of your columns. So what I'm doing, getting all the, using array keys to get all the keys in that row. And then for each, I'm printing the value. That is the first thing. We are getting all the columns and then printing columns first. And then in the next row onwards, we are printing the actual values set in for each row in the database table. End function to close the connection. So now let's execute this script and then see the response. Cars, and then I have inserted four values in it. So I want to see all the values in that cars table. So I'm saying select star from that cars table. The moment I submit this request, it is going to be submitted to the accesscars.php. If you see that form action is set to accesscars.php, and the method of this submission is post. So a script query is this, and then we have HTML special characters that we have used. After that, this is the query. Results, num rows function, MySQL num rows function, it has used, and then it is printing there are 4 rows. And then for each one, it has created a table with MySQL num fields to get the column names, and then MySQL fetch array to get the array of the results. And after that, we have used MySQL close function to close the connection to the MySQL database. So in this example, I have used HTML file with form, and then I have used PHP file to process that. We can actually, PHP supports, HTML elements can be embedded with PHP values. PHP can process and then provide the PHP output as part of that HTML elements. So we can combine this into one file also, and then which will have form, and then once it is submitted to the same file, we can retrieve the user provided input and then execute that query and get the results as what we have seen part of 2 files. Whether something has been posted or not. If nothing, then it is going to show the form. If values are submitted, then it is going to process that in PHP. So the same thing, I'm just combining it into one file from 2 files. We have almost learned everything, like what we have seen in this slide, like the important areas to learn any language. Like we have seen syntaxes, we have also seen few coding standards, we have seen form handling, and then today we have seen file handling and also database integration with one simple example in PHP, connecting to MySQL, selecting the database, executing query, getting the results, showing all the column names, and then printing in a table. So with that, we will be concluding our PHP sessions. and then from tomorrow onwards, you will have a session on Ruby and Ruby on Rails, which will be taken by Rucha. So if you have any questions, you can just post in the chat box.